The year was 2378, and humanity had spread its reach far beyond Earth. Stars were no longer distant lights in the sky, but destinations for trade, exploration, and diplomacy. Yet, despite centuries of progress, humanity remained cautious. Space was vast, unpredictable, and often dangerous. It wasn't uncommon for distress calls to echo through the void, but most came from isolated colonies or stranded freighters, nothing that required much attention. That changed on a quiet Tuesday morning aboard the Unified Space Command's USC Central Hub, Orion Spire. A transmission crackled into existence, breaking through encrypted channels reserved for emergencies. The voice on the other end was calm but urgent, speaking in broken galactic standard. "To humans of Earth, we are Luminary Concord, requesting aid against Void Reavers." Admiral Grayson, commander of USC operations, frowned as he replayed the message. The Luminary Concord was an alliance of alien species known for their advanced technology and self-sufficiency. If they were asking for help, it meant trouble, serious trouble. But there was something odd about the request. They specified they needed only minimal assistance, almost as if they didn't want to burden humanity too much. Grayson leaned back in his chair, stroking his graying beard. Humanity wasn't ready for another galactic war. Resources were stretched thin after decades of colonization efforts. Still, ignoring the plea could damage fragile interstellar relations. After hours of deliberation, he made his decision. He would send a fleet, but not just any fleet. "Get me Captain Ilara Voss," Grayson ordered, his tone grim. Ilara Voss sat alone in her quarters aboard the orbital station, Eclipse Point, nursing a cup of cold coffee. Her once promising career had derailed years ago when she disobeyed orders during a skirmish with pirates. Instead of evacuating civilians, she chose to fight, saving thousands but losing 3 ships in the process. Now, she commanded nothing more than supply runs and training exercises. When summoned to the Admiral's office, Ilara expected yet another reprimand. Instead, Grayson handed her a datapad displaying mission details. "You've been given command of Fleet Omega," he said bluntly. Ilara scanned the file, her brow furrowing. Fleet Omega. That was a joke among officers. The so-called weakest fleet in the USC arsenal, composed of outdated cruisers and crewed by rookies, misfits, and veterans on their last chance, it was barely fit for patrols, let alone combat. "This is our response to the Luminary," Ilara asked incredulously. "They asked for minimal support," Grayson replied coolly. "Consider this a test, for you and them." Ilara clenched her jaw, but nodded. She couldn't argue. This was her shot at redemption. Her flagship, the Aegis Dawn, was docked at a nearby repair bay. Its hull bore patches from countless repairs, and its engines groaned like an old man climbing stairs. When Ilara stepped onto the bridge for the first time, she faced skeptical stares from her new crew. Some whispered about her reputation, while others simply looked bored. "Listen up," Ilara began, addressing the room. "We may not have the best ships or the most experienced crew, but we have something better: determination. The Luminary need us, and whether they realize it or not, we're all they've got." Her word tongue in the air, met with silence at first. Then, slowly, heads began to nod. Among the crew stood Lieutenant Cal Draven, a wiry xenobiologist clutching a tablet full of notes. Beside him was Commander Tessa Rourke, arms crossed and expression unreadable. Both would play crucial roles in what lay ahead. As the fleet prepared to depart, Ilara gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an ancient enemy awaited. And though Fleet Omega might be humanity's weakest, Ilara vowed they wouldn't falter. Not on her watch. The journey into uncharted space began with a mix of anticipation and unease. Fleet Omega, led by Captain Ilara Voss aboard the Aegis Dawn, left Earth's orbit behind and entered the vast unknown. For many crew members, this was their first real mission beyond training exercises or supply runs. The excitement quickly faded as they ventured deeper into regions where starlight dimmed and communication signals grew weaker. It wasn't long before strange phenomena began to plague the fleet. During hyperspace travel, a risky but necessary shortcut through folded dimensions, the ships encountered gravitational anomalies that tugged at their hulls like unseen hands. Navigation systems flickered, forcing pilots to rely on manual controls. On one occasion, the Crimson Dagger, a smaller frigate in the fleet, nearly collided with an invisible obstruction. Sensors detected nothing, yet everyone on board swore they felt something watching them. Things worsened when the nightmares started. At first, it seemed coincidental, crew members reporting restless sleep after exhausting shifts. But soon, patterns emerged. Vivid dreams haunted them, filled with shadowy figures whispering cryptic warnings. Some claimed to hear voices calling their names. Others described visions of barren planets consumed by black waves of energy. Lieutenant Cal Draven, ever curious, began documenting these accounts, convinced there was more to them than mere fatigue. One evening, Cal approached Ilara in her quarters, clutching his tablet. His usually calm demeanor was replaced by nervous energy. "Captain," he began, "I think I've found something." He showed her data collected from environmental sensors during hyperspace jumps. Strange electromagnetic pulses had been recorded near the areas where the anomalies occurred. "These aren't natural occurrences," Cale explained. "They're artificial, like echoes of some ancient event." Ilara frowned. "What kind of event?" Cale hesitated before replying. "Based on what little we know about the Void Reavers, I believe these could be remnants of their attacks. They might leave behind traces of psionic energy, a sort of psychic residue." "Psionic energy," Ilara echoed, skeptical. Humanity had only basic understanding of such concepts, often dismissed as pseudoscience. "It's rare, yes, but not unheard of," Kel continued. "Some species use it for communication or even warfare. If the Reavers are biomechanical entities, they might harness this energy as both weapon and fuel." Before Ilara could respond, alarms blared across the ship. Rushing to the bridge, she found Commander Tessa Rourke already coordinating with other vessels. A massive storm of cosmic debris had appeared ahead, blocking their path. Worse, the debris emitted faint signals similar to those Cal had analyzed, signs of psionic interference. "We can't go around it," Tessa reported. "It stretches too far. We'll have to navigate through." Ilara nodded grimly. "Then let's move carefully, keep all sensors active, and prepare emergency protocols." As the fleet entered the storm, eerie green lights pulsed within the swirling chaos. Ships rocked violently as gravity shifted unpredictably. Crew members held on to their stations, hearts pounding. Suddenly, a garbled transmission crackled over the comms. It wasn't human. It sounded mechanical, distorted, yet eerily deliberate. "Stay out," the voice rasped. "Turn back." Panic rippled through the fleet. Was this another anomaly? Or were the Reavers closer than anyone realized? Back on the Aegis Dawn, Ilara clenched her fists. Whatever awaited them, she knew one thing for certain. Fleet Omega couldn't afford fear. Not now. Not when every moment brought them closer to the heart of darkness. After weeks of tense travel through the shadowy reaches of space, Fleet Omega finally arrived in luminary territory. What they found was not what anyone had expected or hoped for. The once thriving star systems of the luminary Concord were now desolate wastelands. Entire planets had been stripped bare, their surfaces reduced to lifeless husks of rock and ash. Massive craters scoured moons, and debris fields floated where orbital stations used to thrive. It was as if some colossal force had swept through, consuming everything in its path. Captain Ilara Voss stood on the bridge of the Aegis Dawn, her sharp eyes scanning the devastated expanse outside the viewport. Her crew worked silently, their expressions grim as they processed the scale of destruction. Even Commander Tessa Rourke, usually unflappable, looked shaken. "This isn't just an attack," she muttered. "It's extermination." A faint signal crackled over the comms, a weak transmission from a nearby outpost. Ilara ordered the fleet to investigate. When they approached, they discovered a small group of surviving luminary huddled aboard a damaged cruiser. Their leader, an elder named Zinfel, greeted them with wary relief. His shimmering blue skin was marked with scars, and his voice carried the weight of someone who had seen too much death. "Humans," he said, bowing slightly. "You've come. We feared you wouldn't." Ilara stepped forward, her tone firm but respectful. "Tell us what happened here." Zinthal hesitated before speaking. "The Void Reavers," he explained, were biomechanical horrors unlike anything the galaxy had faced before. They didn't just destroy. They consumed entire ecosystems, siphoning energy from planets rich in psionic potential. This energy, he revealed, was vital for advanced civilizations like the Luminary, who relied on it for communication, medicine, and even sustenance. But there was more, something Zinfel hadn't mentioned in the initial distress call. He admitted that the Luminary had downplayed the severity of the crisis when requesting aid. Fearing rejection, they sought allies they deemed expendable. Humans, lacking significant psionic resources, seemed ideal candidates. The revelation sparked outrage among the crew. Lieutenant Cal Draven, however, listened intently, his mind racing with implications. If the Reavers target psionic energy, he whispered to Ilara later, then Earth might not be safe either. If they discover our potential, Ilara silenced him with a sharp glance. Now wasn't the time for panic. She turned back to Zinfal. "Why should we help you after this deception?" The elder lowered his gaze, shame evident in his posture. "Because we are desperate, and because you may be the only ones who can stop them." The Reavers adapt quickly, learning from every encounter. Your unpredictability could give you an edge. Ilara mulled over his words. Despite the betrayal, one truth stood clear. Leaving meant condemning countless worlds, including Earth, to the same fate. She made her decision. "We'll fight," she declared. "But we need a plan." Kale proposed using bait to lure the Reavers into a trap. Since the enemy targeted psionic energy, they could simulate a high-energy signature using modified reactors aboard their ships. The plan was risky, requiring precise timing and coordination. Any mistake would mean annihilation. As preparations began, tensions ran high. Some crew members questioned whether humanity had any business meddling in alien affairs. Others argued that retreat was suicide. Amidst the chaos, Ilara called a meeting with her senior staff. "We're not just fighting for the Luminary," she told them. "We're fighting for ourselves, for every species out there. If we don't stand against the Reavers now, no one will." Her words resonated, bolstering morale. Slowly, the crew rallied behind her. For the first time since departure, Fleet Omega felt united, not as misfits or rejects, but as defenders of something greater than themselves. With resolve burning in their hearts, they set course for the next battleground. Whatever awaited them, they knew one thing for certain. Humanity's weakest fleet was about to face its greatest test. The plan to lure the Void Reavers into a trap required more than just technical preparation. It demanded trust, coordination, and courage. Fleet Omega's crew had none of these in abundance when they began, but as they edged closer to their first major engagement, something remarkable started to happen. The shared challenges of survival began forging bonds that would define them for the rest of their journey. Lieutenant Cal Draven spent countless hours in the engineering bay, fine-tuning the modified reactors designed to emit psionic energy signatures. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted circuits, his mind racing with calculations. Though brilliant, Cal struggled with social interactions, often retreating into his work to avoid awkward conversations. But this changed when Ensign Mira Callan, a young engineer known for her quick wit and sharper tongue, approached him one evening. "You've been staring at those wires like they're going to talk back," she teased, leaning against a console. "Need help?" Cale hesitated before nodding. Together, they worked late into the night, exchanging ideas and stories about their lives. Mira spoke of growing up on a mining colony, where teamwork meant survival. Kale confessed his fascination with alien biology, sparked by childhood dreams of exploring unknown worlds. By the time they finished, they weren't just colleagues, they were friends. Meanwhile, Commander Tessa Rourke found herself reluctantly impressed by Captain Ilara Voss. Tessa had initially doubted Ilara's leadership, believing her reputation for insubordination made her unfit for command. But during a routine patrol near a dense asteroid field, disaster struck. A rogue meteor collided with the Crimson Dagger, disabling its engines and leaving it adrift. Without hesitation, Ilara ordered an emergency rescue operation. Tessa led the team sent to retrieve the stranded crew. As she coordinated efforts from the shuttle, she watched Ilara navigate the Aegis Dawn through treacherous debris, shielding the damaged frigate from further harm. When the mission succeeded, Tessa approached Ilara afterward. "That was reckless," she said bluntly, "but effective." Ilara smirked. "Reckless is my middle name." For the first time, Tessa allowed herself a small smile. "Just don't get us all killed." The fleet's first encounter with the Void Reavers came unexpectedly. While testing the psionic bait system, sensors detected movement nearby. Within moments, sleek biomechanical ships emerged from the void, their jagged forms pulsing with eerie green light. They moved with unnatural precision, surrounding the fleet like predators circling prey. "Engage evasive maneuvers," Ilara shouted, gripping the railing on the bridge. The battle erupted in chaos. Lasers streaked across space, and explosions lit up the darkness. The Reavers adapted quickly, targeting weak points in the outdated human vessels. Crew members scrambled to repair critical systems under fire, sweat dripping down their faces as alarms blared. Amidst the frenzy, Lieutenant Kale noticed something alarming. The Reavers emitted signals that disrupted human technology, not random interference, but deliberate attacks aimed at crippling communications and navigation. He relayed his findings to Ilara, who immediately ordered manual overrides for key systems. "We can't rely on automation," she barked. "Use your instincts." Her words galvanized the crew. Pilots maneuvered ships with gut instinct agility. Gunners fired salvos guided by sheer determination, and engineers patched hull breaches using whatever materials they could find. Slowly, painfully, the fleet held its ground. When the Reavers finally withdrew, leaving behind smoking wreckage and exhausted survivors, the crew of Fleet Omega realized something profound. They hadn't won the battle. Not exactly. But they had survived. And in doing so, they proved to themselves and each other that they were stronger together than anyone had believed. As repairs began, Ilara addressed her crew over the comms. "Today showed us what we're capable of," she said firmly. "We may not have the best ships or the most experience, but we have heart, and that's something no enemy can take away." For the first time, the weakest fleet felt unstoppable. In the aftermath of their first skirmish with the Void Reavers, Fleet Omega limped toward a nearby asteroid belt to regroup. Repairs were underway, but the damage ran deeper than cracked hulls and malfunctioning engines. The crew's morale was shaken. Despite their narrow escape, the Reavers' adaptability had left everyone uneasy. Lieutenant Cal Draven, however, couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover about their enigmatic enemy. Cal spent hours in the Aegis Dawn's lab, dissecting data from captured Reaver drones. His fingers flew over holographic displays as he analyzed fragments of code buried within the biomechanical wreckage. What he discovered sent chills down his spine. The Reavers weren't just machines. They were once sentient beings. They were creators, Kale murmured to himself, staring at the glowing schematics before him. Their technology shows traces of advanced psionic engineering. These creatures didn't start as destroyers. They built civilizations. But something had changed them. Deep within the corrupted systems, Kale found remnants of what appeared to be self-aware programming. It was faint, almost drowned out by layers of hostile directives, yet unmistakably present. The Reavers hadn't always been enemies. They had been victims too. When Captain Ilara Voss entered the lab, she found Kel pacing frantically, his tablet clutched tightly in one hand. "Captain," he said urgently, "we need to talk." He explained his findings, showing her evidence of the Reaver's origins. According to his research, the biomechanical horrors were likely the result of some external corruption, possibly an ancient force or entity that twisted their purpose into annihilation. If true, this revelation raised profound questions. Could the Reavers be reasoned with, rehabilitated, or were they too far gone to save? Ilara listened intently, her sharp eyes narrowing as she processed the implications. "If we tell the crew, it could cause panic," she said finally. "Some might see this as proof we're fighting monsters beyond redemption. But others might see hope," Kel countered. "If there's even a chance we can stop them without destroying them, shouldn't we try?" The weight of the decision pressed heavily on Ilara. She knew morality wasn't always black and white, especially in war. Yet, abandoning the possibility of redemption felt wrong and dangerous. Humanity prided itself on compassion and ingenuity. Wasn't that why they'd ventured into the stars in the first place? Before she could decide how to proceed, Commander Tessa Rourke interrupted. "Captain, we've detected another Reaver swarm approaching. They're heading straight for us." Ilara sprang into action, barking orders to prepare for battle. But as she coordinated defenses, her mind raced back to Kel's discovery. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about understanding. During the ensuing fight, the fleet managed to disable a smaller Reaver vessel without destroying it. Against protocol, Ilara ordered a boarding party to investigate. Leading the team herself, she stepped onto the eerie craft alongside Kale, Tessa, and a squad of Marines. Inside, the air was thick with static electricity, and walls pulsed faintly with green light. Strange symbols etched into the surfaces seemed to shift when stared at too long. Kale approached a central console, his hands trembling as he interfaced with it. Data streamed across his screen, revealing fragmented memories of the Reaver's past. Images of thriving cities, peaceful interactions between species, and then, chaos. A shadowy figure loomed in the background of every corrupted memory, its presence overwhelming and suffocating. "This is it," Kel whispered. "Whatever did this, it's still out there." As alarms blared, signaling incoming reinforcements, Ilara made a call. "We need to retreat," she said firmly, "but not empty-handed." Back aboard the Aegis Dawn, Kel worked tirelessly to decode the stolen data while the rest of the crew processed what they'd seen. For some, it solidified their resolve to fight. For others, it planted seeds of doubt. Were they facing an unstoppable force, or could they find a way to heal the broken minds of their enemies? One thing was certain: humanity's weakest fleet had uncovered a truth that could change everything. This part delves into moral complexity, deepens the mystery surrounding the Reavers, and sets up ethical dilemmas that will shape future decisions. The stolen data from the Reaver vessel revealed a chilling map, a direct route to their origin point, a massive structure known as the Singularity Nexus. Floating at the edge of a black hole, the Nexus pulsed with psionic energy so intense it distorted spacetime itself. To Fleet Omega, it was both a beacon and a death trap. Captain Ilara Voss stared at the holographic projection of the Nexus in the Aegis Dawn's briefing room. The swirling vortex of light and shadow seemed almost alive, beckoning them closer while warning them away. "This is where it ends," she said firmly, addressing her senior staff. "If we want to stop the Reavers, we have to confront whatever controls them here." Lieutenant Cal Draven frowned, his usual calm replaced by unease. "Captain, entering the Nexus is suicide. The gravitational forces alone could tear our ships apart, and that's assuming we survive the Reavers guarding it." "We don't have a choice," Ilara replied. Her voice left no room for argument. "Running won't save us, or anyone else. If we can reach the source of the corruption, maybe we can end this once and for all." Commander Tessa Rourke crossed her arms, studying the projection. "If we're doing this, we need a plan. Something better than just flying in blind." Kale stepped forward, his mind racing. The Nexus emits psionic signals that disrupt technology. We'll need to shield our systems somehow. I can modify the reactors to emit counter-frequencies, but it'll drain power quickly. We'll have limited time inside. Ilara nodded. Do it, and prep the fleet for heavy resistance. This isn't going to be easy. As preparations began, tension rippled through the crew. Rumors spread about the Nexus, stories of ships vanishing without a trace, of pilots losing their minds after glimpsing its depths. Morale plummeted, and even the most seasoned officers felt the weight of what lay ahead. When the fleet approached the black hole's event horizon, reality itself began to warp. Time dilation effects made minutes stretch into hours, and strange visions plagued the crew. Some saw fragments of alternate timelines, worlds consumed by reavers, humanity enslaved, or worse, joining them. Others were haunted by personal regrets, their deepest fears manifesting as ghostly apparitions. On the bridge of the Aegis Dawn, Ilara fought to maintain control. Stay focused, she shouted over the chaos. Whatever you're seeing, it's not real. But staying grounded proved harder than expected. Lieutenant Kale collapsed during his shift, clutching his head as memories he didn't recognize flooded his mind. Ensign Mira Callan found herself whispering to empty corridors, convinced she heard voices calling her name. Even Commander Tessa Rourke, usually unshakable, admitted to seeing flashes of Earth burning under alien skies. Despite the turmoil, Fleet Omega pressed on. One by one, the ships crossed into the Nexus, their hulls groaning under the strain of impossible forces. Inside, they discovered a nightmare landscape. Twisted structures floated in zero gravity, glowing faintly with unnatural light. Rivers of liquid metal flowed upward, defying physics. And everywhere, the hum of psionic energy vibrated through the air like a living thing. This place, it's alive, Kale whispered, his wide eyes scanning the surreal environment. Suddenly, the fleet's sensors screamed warnings. Dozens of reaver ships materialized around them, emerging from the shadows like predators closing in. Their jagged forms loomed larger than ever before, pulsing with an intensity that suggested they were near their source. Prepare for battle, Ilara commanded, her voice cutting through the dread. As lasers lit up the void and explosions rocked the fleet, Ilara made a decision. She ordered the Aegis Dawn to push forward, aiming straight for the heart of the Nexus. If they could reach the central core, the hive mind controlling the reavers, they might still turn the tide. Behind her, Kale gripped his console, muttering calculations under his breath. We're running out of time. The journey into the maw had only begun, but already Fleet Omega knew there would be no turning back. This part heightens suspense, immerses readers in the eerie atmosphere of the Nexus, and sets the stage for the climactic confrontation with the Reaver's hive mind. The Aegis Dawn surged forward, its battered hull trembling under the strain of gravity distortions and relentless enemy fire. Fleet Omega fought valiantly to hold off waves of Reaver ships, but their numbers were overwhelming. Every moment brought them closer to destruction or salvation. Captain Ilara Voss stood at the helm, her jaw clenched as she guided the flagship deeper into the Singularity Nexus. Ahead loomed the central core, a colossal structure pulsing with an eerie green light that seemed alive, writhing like a living organism. This is it, Ilara said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. Kale, are you ready? Lieutenant Cal Draven nodded, his fingers flying over the console. He had spent days preparing for this moment, designing a program capable of interfacing with the Reaver's corrupted hive mind. If successful, it could awaken fragments of their original consciousness, potentially restoring their sanity or destroying them completely. But there was one problem. Accessing the core required physical entry. Someone would have to board it. I'll go, Tessa Rourke volunteered without hesitation. Her sharp features softened slightly as she added, You're needed here, Captain. Besides, someone has to keep these rookies in line. Ilara hesitated, But deep down, she knew Tessa was right. With a reluctant nod, she replied, "Then assemble your team. And come back alive." Tessa selected 3 volunteers. Ensign Mira Callan, whose engineering skills would be invaluable. Corporal Jace Harrow, a fearless Marine with unmatched combat experience. And Lieutenant Kell himself, whose knowledge of the Reavers made him indispensable. As they suited up in bulky exosuits designed to withstand extreme conditions, Cale glanced nervously at the others. "We don't know what we're walking into," he admitted. "This could kill us all." "Then let's make sure it doesn't," Tessa shot back, her tone leaving no room for doubt. The boarding party launched from the Aegis Dawn in a small shuttle, dodging swarms of Reaver drones en route to the core. Upon landing, they stepped into a nightmare. The interior of the structure was unlike anything they'd ever seen. Walls shifted and twisted as if breathing, and strange whispers echoed through the air. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though the very fabric of reality resisted their presence. "Stay close," Tessa ordered, her weapon raised. Progress was slow and perilous. Shadowy figures darted just out of sight, and the ground beneath their feet vibrated with ominous energy. At one point, Mira froze, staring at something only she could see. "I hear them, my parents," she murmured, tears streaming down her face. "Snap out of it," Tessa barked, grabbing her shoulder. "It's not real." Cale led the way, using his tablet to navigate toward the central chamber. When they finally reached it, they found themselves face to face with the hive mind, a monstrous amalgamation of biomechanical tendrils and glowing eyes. It pulsed rhythmically, radiating waves of psionic energy that threatened to overwhelm them. "This is where you upload the program," Cale said, his voice shaking. As he connected his device to the core, alarms blared, and dozens of smaller Reaver drones descended upon them. Tessa shouted orders, her team forming a defensive perimeter as they fought desperately to hold their ground. "Hurry, Hale," Jace yelled, firing wildly at the advancing enemies. "I'm almost done," Cale replied, sweat dripping down his face. Suddenly, a massive tendril lashed out, knocking Cale to the ground. Tessa leaped forward, intercepting the attack with her own body. Blood seeped from her side, but she gritted her teeth and pushed him back toward the console. "Finish it," she demanded, raising her weapon once more. With trembling hands, Cale completed the upload. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hive mind shuddered violently, releasing a deafening roar that shook the entire nexus. Light flooded the chamber, blinding everyone inside. When the glare faded, the Reavers had stopped moving. Their lifeless forms floated silently, no longer a threat. But the cost weighed heavily on those who remained. This part delivers intense action, emotional sacrifice, and sets up the resolution of the conflict, while leaving room for reflection on the moral complexities of victory. The silence that followed the hive mind's collapse was deafening. The once overwhelming hum of psionic energy had vanished, leaving only the faint hiss of static in its wake. Inside the central chamber, Lieutenant Cal Draven stared at the lifeless tendrils of the Reaver hive mind, his hands trembling as he clutched his tablet. The program had worked, but at what cost? Commander Tessa Rourke lay slumped against a wall, her exosuit scorched and dented, blood pooling beneath her. Her breathing was shallow, each ragged inhale a reminder of the sacrifice she'd made to ensure Cal's success. Ensign Mira Callan knelt beside her, tears streaming down her face as she pressed a makeshift bandage to Tessa's wound. "Don't you dare die," Mira whispered hoarsely. "Not now." Tessa managed a weak smile, her voice barely audible. "Someone has to keep you kids alive. Carry the torch." Her gaze shifted to Cale. "You did good, kid. Don't waste it." Cale swallowed hard, guilt and grief threatening to overwhelm him. He wanted to say something, anything, but words failed him. Instead, he focused on transmitting their location back to the Aegis Dawn. Within minutes, a recovery shuttle arrived, evacuating the team just as the core began to destabilize. Back aboard the flagship, Captain Ilara Voss greeted them with relief etched across her face. But when she saw Tessa's condition, her expression hardened into one of grim determination. Medical teams rushed the commander to the infirmary, but everyone knew the odds weren't in her favor. As the fleet regrouped outside the Nexus, reality slowly returned to normal, or as close to normal as possible after such an ordeal. Time dilation effects faded, and the eerie visions haunting the crew dissipated like morning mist. Yet the emotional toll lingered. Crew members wandered the halls in stunned silence, processing what they'd witnessed. Ilara stood alone on the bridge, staring out at the remnants of the Reaver's fleet. Gone were the jagged biomechanical horrors. Instead, inert ships drifted aimlessly, their corrupted purpose extinguished. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel hope. They had done the impossible. Fleet Omega, humanity's weakest fleet, had faced an ancient evil and emerged victorious. But victory came at a price. Hours later, news reached the bridge. Commander Tessa Rourke had succumbed to her injuries. The announcement sent shockwaves through the crew. Even those who hadn't known her personally felt the weight of her loss. She had been a pillar of strength, a leader who inspired loyalty through action rather than words. That evening, Ilara gathered the crew for a brief memorial service. Standing before them, she spoke with quiet resolve. Tessa gave everything so we could succeed. Her courage reminds us why we're here, not just to survive, but to protect those who can't protect themselves. We honor her memory by continuing forward, no matter how hard the road ahead may be. Afterward, Cale approached Ilara privately. His eyes were red from crying, but his voice carried a newfound conviction. Captain, I've been analyzing the data we retrieved from the hive mind. There are fragments, pieces of the Reaver's original consciousness still intact. If we can study them, maybe we can prevent another tragedy like this from happening. Ilara placed a hand on his shoulder. Then do it. Make sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. In the days that followed, Fleet Omega limped homeward, battered but united. Though mourning Tessa's death, the crew found solace in knowing they had changed the course of history. The Void Reavers were no longer a threat, but the shadow of their corruption remained, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace. For Ilara, the journey wasn't over. As she gazed at the stars streaking past the viewport, she vowed to uncover the truth behind the force that had twisted the Reavers, and ensure humanity would never fall prey to such darkness again. This part balances emotional impact with resolution, honoring the sacrifices made while setting up future exploration and unanswered questions. The return journey to Earth was somber, marked by both triumph and loss. Fleet Omega had accomplished the impossible. They had neutralized the Void Reavers and uncovered the truth behind their corruption. But the scars of battle ran deep. The Aegis Dawn and its sister ships limped through space, their hulls battered and systems barely holding together. More than physical damage, however, was the emotional toll etched into every crew member's face. Captain Ilara Voss spent much of her time in quiet reflection, standing alone on the bridge as the stars blurred past. She replayed moments from the mission over and over in her mind, the sacrifices made, the lives lost, and the choices she had been forced to make. Tessa Rourke's final words echoed in her thoughts. Carry the torch. It was a burden Ilara felt keenly, but one she accepted without hesitation. Lieutenant Cal Draven threw himself into his work, determined to honor Tessa's memory by studying the data retrieved from the Singularity Nexus. In the ship's lab, he pored over fragments of the Reaver's original consciousness, searching for answers about what, or who, had corrupted them. His findings painted a disturbing picture. A shadowy figure glimpsed in the corrupted memories seemed to be an ancient entity, possibly older than the galaxy itself. Its motives were unclear, but one thing was certain. It thrived on chaos and destruction. What if it's still out there? Cale asked during a late-night conversation with Ensign Mira Callan, who often helped him organize his research. Mira frowned, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Then we'll deal with it when the time comes. For now, let's focus on what we've won. Her optimism surprised Cale, though it also gave him strength. He realized that while the future might hold unknown dangers, humanity had proven capable of overcoming even the gravest threats. When Fleet Omega finally arrived back in Earth's orbit, they were greeted not with scorn or dismissal, as many had feared, but with awe and admiration. News of their victory had spread across human space, turning whispers of ridicule into cries of celebration. The so-called weakest fleet had become heroes, their names spoken with pride. Admiral Grayson personally welcomed Ilara aboard the Orion Spire, his expression a mix of relief and respect. "You did well, Captain," he said, offering her a rare smile. "Better than anyone expected." Ilara nodded, though her gaze remained steady. "We couldn't have done it without sacrifice. Commander Rourke deserves recognition for her bravery." "She will," Grayson assured her. "And you, too. You've earned your place among the best." For the first time in years, Ilara felt a flicker of hope, not just for herself, but for humanity. The Luminary Concord sent formal gratitude, offering Earth membership in their alliance. Their initial deception was forgiven, overshadowed by the shared victory against a common enemy. Yet beneath the celebrations, questions lingered. In private meetings with top officials, Cale presented his findings about the ancient entity that had corrupted the Reavers. Though speculative, his theories sparked serious concern. Humanity's leaders agreed to allocate resources toward further study, ensuring they would never be caught unprepared again. As the days passed, Fleet Omega began to disperse. Some crew members chose to retire, seeking solace after months of hardship. Others, like Mira and Jace, signed up for new missions, eager to continue exploring the stars. Ilara watched them go with a bittersweet sense of pride, knowing they carried pieces of their shared journey with them. One evening, under a sky filled with twinkling stars, Ilara stood beside Cale outside the orbital station. "What happens next?" he asked softly. "We keep going," she replied, her voice firm. "There's still so much we don't understand, and so much more to protect." Cale smiled faintly. "Then I guess this isn't the end." "No," Ilara said, gazing upward. "It's just the beginning." This part wraps up loose ends, celebrates victories, honors losses, and sets the stage for future adventures, leaving readers hopeful yet curious about what lies ahead. Months had passed since Fleet Omega's return, and the galaxy seemed to breathe easier. The Void Reavers were no longer a threat, their twisted hive mind silenced forever. Or so everyone hoped. Humanity basked in newfound respect among the stars. Its weakest fleet, hailed as legends, Captain Ilara Voss, once disgraced and overlooked, now commanded not just respect but admiration. Yet, for all the accolades and ceremonies, Ilara found herself restless. Victory had brought peace, but it also left her with unanswered questions and an unshakable sense of purpose. The Unified Space Command assigned her a new ship, the Eclipse Vanguard, a sleek cruiser built with lessons learned from Fleet Omega's trials. Its crew was handpicked, many veterans of the Reaver conflict eager to follow Ilara into the unknown. Among them were Lieutenant Kel Draven, whose research on psionic energy earned him a permanent role as Chief Science Officer, and Ensign Mira Callan, who had risen through the ranks to become lead engineer. Even Corporal Jace Harrow remained part of the team, his loyalty unwavering despite offers of promotions elsewhere. As the Eclipse Vanguard prepared for its maiden voyage, Ilara stood on the bridge, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. She thought of Tessa Rourke often, wondering what advice her old friend might offer if she were still here. "Carry the torch," Tessa had said, and that's exactly what Ilara intended to do. Their mission was simple yet daunting. Explore uncharted regions of space, seeking knowledge and forging alliances while remaining vigilant against unseen threats. Rumors persisted about the ancient entity that had corrupted the Reavers. Some believed it still lurked in the dark corners of the universe, waiting for its next opportunity to strike. Others dismissed it as myth, a cautionary tale born of fear. Either way, Ilara knew humanity couldn't afford complacency. "Ready when you are, Captain," Kale announced, breaking her reverie. He held up a tablet displaying their flight plan, a route skirting the edge of known space, where anomalies hinted at untapped mysteries. Ilara nodded, turning to address her crew. "This isn't just another mission. It's a chance to write our own story, to discover what lies beyond the horizon, and ensure no one faces the darkness alone." With those words, the Eclipse Vanguard launched into the void, its engines humming with promise. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, strange worlds, alien civilizations, and perhaps even remnants of the Reaver's corruption. But Ilara trusted her crew, united by shared struggles and boundless determination. Weeks turned into months as they ventured deeper into unexplored territory. They encountered breathtaking phenomena. Nebula glowing like cosmic paintings, planets covered in crystalline forests, and sentient species eager to share their wisdom. Each discovery reminded them why they had chosen this life, not for glory or riches, but for the thrill of exploration and the hope of making a difference. One evening, as the ship drifted near a binary star system, Kale approached Ilara in the observation deck. "Do you ever wonder if we'll find it?" he asked quietly. "The thing that corrupted the Reavers." Ilara smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on the swirling stars outside. "Maybe, but whether we do or not, we'll face it together." Kale nodded, reassured by her resolve. Whatever awaited them, they were ready. As the Eclipse Vanguard disappeared into the vastness of space, its legacy grew brighter with every step forward. Humanity's weakest fleet had proven itself stronger than anyone imagined. And now, under Captain Ilara Voss's leadership, it carried the torch of hope into a future filled with infinite possibilities.